It's official, then, Meghan Markle, Speaker of Standard American English, is now wed to Prince Harry, Speaker of what he might call Grandma's English, and if the experience of expat Americans in the UK or Brits in America, like this writer, is any guide, the happy couple have years of fun ahead of them. Literally years in which one of them will utter some word or turn of phrase the other has never heard before. They will take turns on this. There will be misunderstandings, amused laughter, the shaking of heads, every single day of the marriage. It is almost impossible for a British-American couple to be bored. They need only ever start talking. Having read the excellent in-depth language book The Prodigal Tongue, written by American expat linguist Lynn Murphy, published in both the US and the UK last month, I now believe the close coupling of American English and British English might itself qualify as the best long-term, long-distance relationship in the world. It's a weird, wild relationship in which each partner secretly believes the other one has the upper hand, but neither really understands what's going on between them. Americans approach the Queen's English adoringly, as if it is somehow more correct, while Brits tend to look at American English with suspicion, fearing that if they let their guard down for 1 second the mouths of Britain will be filled with Yankee jargon. Transatlantic fans at the royal wedding. Image, told Guy AKMEN, AFP, Getty Images. But under this odd couple veneer, the two nationalists, as Murphy dubs them, are like lovesick teenagers. They're hungry for each other's entertainment and media, and have swapped words, phrases and spellings back and forth so much over the last couple of hundred years that Murphy has a hell of a time figuring out where many of them started. In fact, she spends the vast majority of the book telling us we're getting the difference all wrong. A lot of that has to do with stereotypes. Americans, did you know that the very British-sounding word, poppycock, actually came from America? Same goes for the phrase, the bee's knees. Brits, did you know Americans think we call an umbrella a bumbershoot, forgetting that they invented that word themselves back in the early 20th century. They've never heard of Raleigh's Brits bemoan a word like incentivize, assuming it comes out of some U.S. business school textbook. In fact, its first recorded usage was in the UK Guardian in 1968. They may have a vague sense of how many Americanisms have been imported without fuss. One lurks in their living rooms. Brits happily use Hoover, when Americans would say vacuum cleaner, in their lonely fight against American words. The British have long prided themselves on having stiff upper lips. They have no idea this stoic phrase is probably an Americanism, one dating back to at least 1815. This linguistic immigration continues to this day, and despite what many fearful Brits think, it's very much two-way immigration. One of my favorite examples is kerfuffle. It's a British word, meaning a commotion, a hubbub, a vague dispute, that was almost never spoken by Americans when first I moved to the States 20 years ago. I remember confusing an editor or two when I started at Time magazine by inserting it in my copy. But now, decades later, kerfuffle seems to be useful enough to Americans, who can never get enough words to describe kinds of conflict, that it can be heard in NBA press conferences. The reaction of Steph Curry on hearing it for the first time is exactly correct. That is a word right there. Coincidentally, in recent years I have started using that is a underscore right there, to emphasize all sorts of things in the American style, and enjoy it immensely. So that seems a fair exchange. Here's the truly great thing about the common language that divides our two nations. As neither Oscar Wilde nor George Bernard Shaw quite put it, it's a democratic marketplace. Everyone's in. Curry and his teammates have as much influence on what bits of language get used, or traded, or constructed, as the royal family does. You like kerfuffle, Yanks? All yours. Don't mind if we take poppycock, do you? You didn't seem to be using it. No dictionary editor, no political leader, gets to decide how we speak or even how we spell. Though as Murphy reveals, both groups have tried, in America, that is. After the revolution, Noah Webster tried to get Americans to change their spellings so that pretty much every other word would be different from the English. Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Jefferson both believed American and British English would grow so far apart we'd be unable to understand each other in a century or two. Jefferson, who literally invented the word Anglophobia, really didn't like British English. It didn't matter. A brisk transatlantic trade kept the linguistic connection strong. New words flowed back and forth via clipper ship. Jefferson also invented the word little, which the Brits came to love. Movies and TV accelerated the process. Where spellings differ, sometimes it's because Brits changed their minds on how to spell things and Americans are preserving the 18th century version, image, penguin, but sometimes, Murphy says, it's because the British love to import French styles and spellings. As with Americans, Brits claim to hate the French, but our word-swiping ways tell a different story. American English folk, meanwhile, tend to prefer the more plain Anglo-Saxon way of speaking and spelling. Welcome, once again, to the world's oddest linguistic couple. What's really odd is how unstudied this whole area is. Experts like Murphy are still uncovering differences in the things we mean when we say the same words. It's not just the well-worn embarrassments like Fanny. It's things like chatting up, which Brits generally use to describe heavy flirting. Americans liked the phrase, took it, and completely misuse it in an adorably innocent way. When Murphy relates how she discovered that the two countries have different ways of frowning, or rather, they think the frown is located in different places. You could have knocked me over with a bumbershoot. Many Americans apparently think that frowning is an activity that takes place at the corners of the mouth, which means turn that frown upside down. Now makes sense to me for the first time in my life. Brits believe frowns are on foreheads, which confused Murphy when she read in UK literature about frowning and concentration. Why would concentrating make you sad? The prodigal tongue is a treasure trove of hilarious differences like this, many of them food-related. For example, a burger is subtly different depending on which country you're eating it. For Americans it's all about the meat patty. For Brits it's all about a thing inside a bun, which is why we can be found eating chicken burgers, soups, cakes, and biscuits all describe different things. Throw in a myriad of word differences from jam v. jelly to aubergine v. eggplant and it's a wonder American and British chefs can understand each other, but they can, and so can the rest of us. Despite Jefferson's fondest wishes, we've only grown linguistically closer together over the centuries. We could so easily have ended up like Spain and Portugal, whose languages are now almost entirely different. But we didn't. We entwined across the sea like lovers, endlessly attracted by the mystery of differences. Linguists often compare the changes in British verses. American English to a dance. Sometimes one country leads, sometimes the other. Murphy takes this metaphor closer to the truth. They're troops of dancers, she writes. Not all of them are wearing their assigned costumes. Their choreographer called in sick, and they don't all share the same sense of rhythm. One of the dancers has a crush on a dancer in the other troupe, and dancers from both troupes have started mimicking each other. Oh my god, some of them have started twerking. Welcome, Harry and Meghan, to the dance.